I said, did you see the news today that NBC is launching? They launched today a new streaming channel. I said, did you see the news that CBS has CBSN, which is a digital channel? I said, did you see that Fox News next year is launching a digital channel? I said, so explain to me how it's bad that I have a digital show
before,
but they all are launching digital shows.
So before they had this.
Again, how we think. So we're taking on. So we're degrading ourselves and saying that ain't good.
Well, Roland, it's just it's like what happens in HBCU land. As you know, you have our people. We have brilliant, wonderful, phenomenal colleges in HBCU land, and we have black people who say things like, you know, I wouldn't send my child to an HBCU. Your child, but some of your children need to be at HBCUs.
Right.
And HBCUs will provide the same level of education. If you look at a Howard, you look at a Morehouse, a Spelman, a Bennett, you know, the same level of education. And don't end me. You want to say in that chair? But the same levels of education that many other comparable schools do. So we really have been brainwashed. We have literally been taught that we are less than, and we have basically inculcated that. And there's no comprehensive way. I like what you said about the AME Church, but no comprehensive way for us to unpack that, to begin to talk about what's happened to us as a people.
Yes, speaking of HBCUs, it's Howard Homecoming Week, so I'm going to need to see a sweatshirt. My point.
You want to? I wear HBCU gear on Monday.
Okay, well,
this ain't Monday.
You still have time. You still have time.
In the state, I had it on Monday. Go ahead.
HU. So my point is, you made to me the most critical point about the fact that in a very short time, the minority will be the majority. And all of these things are going to have to be figured out. I was at a conference over the weekend, and one of the things Bishop Jake said is the reason why we don't have relationship is because we don't visit somebody different than us. So if we take the time to visit Asian Americans, Caucasians, everybody, if we don't silo, if we do not get out of our silos, then we will be the same as the white people have been to us.
Here's why I made that. But Julian, here's why I made that point. So I graduated from Texas A&M. A black woman with a black journalist conference. She comes up to me and she says, "Roland," I said, "I got to talk to you." I said, "Okay." She said, I go to Texas A&M. She said, you know, and I hear you talk about the university and how much, you know, you enjoyed your 4 years there. I'm like, yeah. She said, but, you know, my problem is just that, you know, how we be received by the white students. I said, okay. I said, what do you mean? She said, so for instance, you know, we've gone to Sabisa, which is our a major cafeteria. She said, you know, the white students won't sit with us to eat. I said, okay. I said, you ever sit with them? She goes, what do you mean? I said, what I mean is, do you ever take your tray and literally walk over? I said, do you ever take your tray and walk over and then sit down and say, how y'all doing? Anybody sitting here? She goes, why would I do that? I said, so help me out. You're asking white students to do what you won't do. I said, has it ever dawned on you that there's some white kids who go to A&M who have come from towns they ain't never seen black people? I said, and there's some black students who have come from communities in Houston and Dallas who ain't never seen there were white people. I said, what is the harm of you sitting down and just talking to somebody? She literally said, that never crossed my mind. I said, you can't ask of somebody else what you're unwilling to do.
That's right.
And so it's not kumbaya. It's just the reality that why can't I if I got someone who's Asian or Latino who's a woman, I have at some point I've got to get the hell out of just my spot and actually talk to somebody.
I don't fully disagree with you, but the kumbaya, let's have a conversation thing is played when you think about economic structure. See, I always come back to economic issues.
Got it.
When Monique talked about, well, if you don't go visit Asians or whatever, we're going to be the same. We're going to be the same unless we figure out how to deconstruct a capitalism that puts people at the periphery. It has nothing to do whether we have conversations or not.
But hold on.
We need to have
but by having the
conversations
conversation,
we need to have economic conversations. We need to be in rooms and chambers of commerce and boards so that we can learn what that thought process is.
Hold on. No. And see, I'm
gonna
gonna give you the answer to that. You have some African Americans, Robert Smith, the brother who's a billionaire, who's been working with Reverend Al Sharpton on pension funds. Okay. And what they said is, they said, wait a minute, you got all these white boys who got hedge funds, and the public pension funds, teachers, firefighters, police officers, they are the biggest pension funds that drive money to hedge funds. Black hedge fund managers not getting the money. So what happened? Sharpton and Smith and others, they go sit down with Randy Weingarten, AFT, and NEA, and they say, now look, y'all got all these black teachers who are funding your unions. Y'all money are going to white hedge fund managers. They laid it out. Weingarten says, and her team goes, you know what, you're right. CalPERS, the California pension fund, $500 million going to the black hedge fund. Black folks sat down with white folks, explained to them, this is what's happening. How do we leverage? Y'all are using black funds, and they went, damn, that's a good point. You right. And so now they're saying, let's go to the other pension funds. So to your point, if we don't tell somebody that and show them and then say, now what y'all gonna do?
Right.
Well, that's very different than this go to somebody's house, have a conversation nonsense. Monique, with all due respect.
No.
That's what you said. I'm quoting you.
I said if you don't visit. What I meant by visit was conversation.
I'm quoting you.
Time.
It's
spend time.
It's lightweight.
Right.
No, but here's the deal. But here's the deal, Julian.
Conversation is not.
If I got somebody white in the workplace,
ignorance starts at home.
If I got somebody white in the workplace who don't understand what black men and black women are going through, and then if I'm able to enlighten them and educate them, then if they are in the room that I'm not in, if I've done my job, they then might become champions of it. They may not, but at least I've said, look, here's what's going on, and you may not have any idea about it, Scott, in a law firm. We've seen that, where white lawyers are like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, and that's actually happening.
Yeah.
You're going, yes.
And we got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable with it.
Yes.
Now, I got
and not making them comfortable.
Exactly. I got 35% diversity in the D.C. office of Reed Smith. I've been intentional, and our global managing partner and senior manager have been intentional about it. And we openly talk about race and gender, especially when it comes to pitching business. If we're going to pitch a piece of business to a large company and they've got great diversity, or their leadership has diversity, whether it's women or people of color, why would we field an all-white male team to go see that company in 2018? So my partners have got to be comfortable about talking about, Scott, who do we have that does SEC work who's an African-American woman? We can't be uncomfortable about that, because diverse ideas and diverse teams are better, stronger teams. And we have to be comfortable with that. And if I can make every one of my partners who doesn't look like me, male or female, comfortable about that, whatever office they're in, that's my job as managing partner.
And Julian, what I keep saying is, I'm tired of parking lot militants. I'm tired of folks.
What is a parking lot militant?
A parking lot militant is the person who, before you leave the office, they buy the car and they saying, man, this need to happen, and this need to happen, and this need to happen. And then when they go in that building, you like, well, where your little parking lot militant ass go? Now you quiet. My deal is, look, I always said it, they're going to fire you anyway. Okay, so at least I'm going to say something while I'm there. And I'm saying, if we're willing to challenge, to educate, take some folks out, enlighten some white boys on pay disparity, enlighten some folks and like, say, bro, you don't recognize it? All the folks on your team, white men? I'm just saying that a conversations, dinner, or lunch It also builds relationships.
Exactly.
It could lead to change.
Professionally.
Final comment before I go to my next story about voting in Georgia.
My final comment is, let's look at economic structure. All this talking.
Can you talk about economics during those conversations?
You can talk about
Okay,
economics, but Scott, the bottom line economic structural issue is less race than it is class and capitalism. And this is a conversation that nobody wants to have, is how you dismantle capitalism so that you basically distribute resources more fairly.
But I'm going to give you, but I'm going to give you this example. Hold up. I'm going to give you this example, last one, of what happens when you do educate somebody who's white, who's in power, who then can also do that. John Landgraf, the CEO of FX Network. He is sitting here going, look at numbers, 80+% of the showrunners of FX shows were white men.
Oh, wow.
John Landgraf sends an email, one email, to the entire network, and he says, I'm a white man, and I like white men. We talk, they friends of mine, but this ain't America. He said 50+% of America's women. He said the numbers who are Latino, who are African American, and this is changing. He says we have to change who is running the shows in our network. 6 months later, half of all shows on FX had people of color who were showrunners, or people of color or women. His deal was, I'm a leader. He said we have to change it. That's economics right there, because also who are showrunners, who are creators, and so Donald Glover's show, ATL, the other shows they have, that also changes the game economically. I still believe that, look, I don't assume a white person gets it. I don't assume a black person gets it. Right. But what I will say is, I'm at least had a conversation that if I can have an opportunity to enlighten you and empower you, you might get it or you might not. But at least I'm going to make the effort, and that can speak to economics. I don't believe in wasted conversations. I'm with you on the money part. But again, somebody's got to force it, and if it's going to be us, fine. But I'm not going to wait on somebody else to actually do it.